More than 1,000 years ago, high in the mountains of Ethiopia, a young goat herder noticed something strange. His goats, which were usually calm as they grazed across the hillsides, had suddenly become wild with energy. They leaped and danced and refused to sleep, long after the sun had gone down. Confused, the herder watched them closely, and he saw that before their strange behavior began, they had been eating the bright red berries of a certain shrub. Cautiously, he tried the berries himself, and for the first time in recorded memory, a human being felt the electric jolt of caffeine surging through his body. He had no idea what he had discovered. He did not know that these small red berries would one day spark religious wars and royal bands, that kings would try to execute the people who consumed them, that they would fuel revolutions, build financial empires, and cross every ocean on Earth, that the drink made from them would become the most popular beverage on the planet, sipped by billions of people every single morning. This is the story of coffee, a story of energy and obsession, of faith and fear, of empire and exploitation, and of a humble berry that quietly rewired the rhythm of human civilization. In the beginning, coffee was not a drink at all. In the highlands of Ethiopia, where the plant grew wild, people did not brew it, they ate it. Some crushed the berries and mixed them with fat to form energy-rich balls that warriors and travelers could carry on long journeys, a portable jolt of stamina for the road. Others chewed the leaves or the raw cherries to fight off exhaustion. For centuries, the power of this plant remained a local secret, hidden in the mountains of East Africa, unknown to the wider world. There is an old legend about how coffee first became the drink we know. The goat herder, so the story goes, brought the mysterious berries to a nearby monastery, hoping the monks might understand their power. But the monks were suspicious of the strange, stimulating fruit, and one of them threw the berries into the fire in disgust. Almost at once, an intoxicating aroma began to rise from the flames as the beans inside roasted. The rich smell was so wonderful that the monks raked the roasted beans from the embers, crushed them, and mixed them with hot water to preserve the scent. And so, according to legend, the very first cup of coffee was brewed, and the monks discovered that it helped them stay awake through their long nightly prayers. Whether or not the story is true, it captures a truth that would repeat itself for centuries. Coffee and wakefulness, coffee and devotion, coffee and the human desire to push past the limits of the body would be linked forever. Then coffee crossed the sea. Sometime around the 15th century, the plant made its way across the narrow strip of water separating Africa from the Arabian Peninsula into the land we now call Yemen, and it was there that coffee was transformed. Instead of eating the berries, people began to dry the beans inside them, roast them, grind them, and pour hot water over the grounds to make a dark, bitter, energizing drink. They called it qahwa, and it found its earliest and most devoted followers among Sufi mystics, who drank it deep into the night so they could stay awake through long hours of prayer and worship. For them, coffee was almost sacred, a tool that helped them stay alert and connected to the divine when the rest of the world had fallen asleep. Yemen became the cradle of the coffee trade. In the highlands, farmers began cultivating the plant deliberately, and the bustling port of Mocha grew famous as the gateway through which coffee flowed out into the world, a name that is still stamped on coffee to this day. But the people of Yemen guarded their treasure jealously. Beans that left the country were often boiled or dried first so that they could never be planted and grown elsewhere. For a time, this small corner of Arabia held a near-total monopoly on one of the most desirable substances on earth. As coffee spread through the Islamic world, something remarkable happened. Wherever it went, a new kind of place appeared alongside it, the coffee house. In cities like Mecca, Cairo, and Istanbul, these establishments became vibrant centers of social life where people gathered not just to drink, but to talk, to debate, to play games, to listen to music, and to share news and ideas. They were open to people of different backgrounds and classes in a way few other places were. Some called them schools of the wise, because so much learning and conversation flowed through them. Coffee, unlike wine, did not dull the mind. It sharpened it, and that was exactly what made it dangerous. Because as people gathered in coffee houses to talk, they inevitably began to talk about power. They discussed politics, they criticized rulers, they spread ideas that those in authority found threatening, and so, again and again throughout history, the powerful tried to stamp coffee out. In the early 16th century, the governor of Mecca banned coffee, convinced that these gathering places were breeding grounds for rebellion and immoral behavior. He ordered stalks of coffee to be burned in the streets and the coffee houses shut down. Religious authorities argued fiercely over whether the drink was permitted at all, some claiming it was an intoxicant forbidden by faith, others insisting it was a harmless gift. In the Ottoman Empire, one sultan took the fight even further. Fearing that the coffeehouses of his capital had become nests of conspiracy against his throne, he decreed the death penalty for anyone caught drinking coffee. It is said that he would walk the streets of his city in disguise, carrying a heavy blade, and that any citizen he caught with the forbidden drink might be struck down where they stood. Those caught a second time, according to the grim stories, were sewn into leather sacks and thrown into the river. And yet, despite the bans, despite the burnings, despite the executions, people kept drinking. Coffee houses reopened in secret. The craving for coffee proved stronger than the threat of death itself. By the 17th century, coffee had reached the shores of Europe, and it arrived shrouded in suspicion. To many Europeans, this dark, bitter drink from the Muslim world seemed strange and even sinister. Some Christian leaders called it the drink of the devil and demanded that it be condemned. According to a famous story, the controversy grew so heated that it was brought before the Pope himself. Advisors urged him to ban the drink as an infidel threat, but before making his decision, the Pope decided to taste it for himself. And he was so delighted by its rich flavor that, rather than condemn it, he is said to have joked that the drink was so good it would be a sin to let only non-believers enjoy it. With that, coffee was welcomed into Europe, and its rise became unstoppable. Just as it had in the East, coffee gave birth to a new institution in the West, the European coffeehouse. In cities like London, Paris, and Vienna, these establishments exploded in popularity. In England, they were nicknamed penny universities, because for the price of a single penny, the cost of a cup of coffee, a person could sit for hours and absorb the conversation, debate, and knowledge swirling around them. These were not quiet places. They were loud, crowded, electric with argument and ideas. Merchants did business in them. Scientists and philosophers debated in them. Writers and poets found their audiences in them. Many of the great ideas of the Enlightenment were argued over steaming cups of coffee. The influence of these coffee houses ran deeper than most people realize. In London, one particular coffeehouse became a gathering place for ship owners, merchants, and sailors who wanted to insure their voyages against disaster. The deals struck over coffee in that room grew into one of the most famous insurance markets in the world, an institution that still bears the name of the man who once ran that humble shop. Elsewhere, coffee houses became hotbeds of political revolution. In the years leading up to the French Revolution, the cafes of Paris buzzed with radical ideas, and it was in these very places that some of the sparks of that uprising were lit. Coffee did not just keep people awake, it helped them imagine a different world. Across the ocean, coffee even became a symbol of rebellion and national identity. In the American colonies, drinking tea had long been the custom, but tea was heavily taxed by the British Crown. When anger over that taxation boiled over, and colonists famously dumped chests of British tea into the harbor, turning away from tea became an act of patriotism. Choosing coffee instead was a quiet declaration of independence, and the drink became woven into the identity of a new nation. What people chose to put in their cup had become a political statement. But the growing thirst for coffee created a problem. Demand was soaring across Europe, yet the supply was still largely controlled by the Arab world. European powers, hungry for profit, became determined to break that monopoly and grow coffee for themselves. And so began an era of smuggling, espionage, and empire. The Dutch were among the first to succeed. They managed to obtain living coffee plants and began cultivating them in their colonies in the East Indies, on the island of Java, a name that would become so linked with coffee that it remains slang for the drink today. Then came one of the most famous stories in all of coffee's history. A French naval officer named Gabriel de Clou is said to have carried a single precious coffee seedling across the Atlantic Ocean, toward the Caribbean. The voyage was brutal. According to the legend, water ran dangerously low, and de Clou shared his own meager ration with the tiny plant to keep it alive, guarding it against storms, pirates, and a jealous passenger who tried to destroy it. That one seedling, so the story goes, became the ancestor of vast coffee plantations across the Americas. And here, once again, coffee's story turns dark. As Europeans established enormous coffee plantations across the Caribbean, Central America, and South America, they needed a massive supply of labor to work them. Like sugar before it, coffee became deeply entangled with the horrors of slavery. Countless enslaved people were forced to plant, tend, and harvest coffee under brutal conditions, their suffering hidden behind every fragrant cup enjoyed in the elegant coffeehouses of Europe. The drink that had become a symbol of enlightenment and free thought was, at the same time, built on the backs of the enslaved. It is one of the great and painful contradictions woven through the history of the foods and drinks we love. Over time, one country would come to dominate the coffee world above all others. Brazil, with its vast lands and warm climate, became the largest producer of coffee on the planet, a position it holds to this day. Coffee reshaped entire nations, drawing millions of workers into its fields, and building economies that rose and fell with the price of a single bean. As the centuries passed, coffee kept transforming. The industrial age brought new inventions that changed how people drank it. Instant coffee was developed, allowing a cup to be made in seconds, and it traveled with soldiers into the trenches of great wars, becoming a vital comfort in the darkest of times. Later, the espresso machine, perfected in Italy, gave rise to a whole new culture of quick, intense shots of coffee, and the cafes built around them, along with drinks like the cappuccino and the latte that are now beloved around the world. In the 20th century, coffee chains spread across the globe, turning the simple act of buying a cup into a massive worldwide industry, and making the coffee shop a familiar sight on nearly every city street. And more recently, a new movement arose, treating coffee less like a commodity and more like fine wine, obsessing over the origin of every bean, the altitude it was grown at, the precise roast, and the perfect brew. Today, coffee is woven into the very fabric of daily life for billions of people. It is one of the most valuable and heavily traded commodities in the entire world, supporting the livelihoods of millions of farmers across dozens of countries. It is the fuel of the modern age, the drink that powers early mornings, long workdays, late-night study sessions, and quiet moments of connection between friends. The same jolt of energy that once made a herd of goats dance on an Ethiopian hillside now stirs the entire human race into motion every single day. Somewhere right now, high in the mountains of Ethiopia, a farmer is picking bright red coffee cherries by hand, exactly as people have for centuries. Somewhere in the vast fields of Brazil, machines are harvesting oceans of beans under a blazing sun. Somewhere in a crowded city, a barista is pulling a shot of espresso, the rich aroma filling the air. And somewhere, a tired person is wrapping their hands around a warm cup, taking that first grateful sip, never imagining the empires that rose, the rulers who tried to ban it, the revolutions it helped ignite, and the long, strange, and often dark journey of the little red berry that quietly changed the world. If you enjoyed this story, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment telling me which food or drink with a hidden history you want to see next. And if this video taught you something new, smash that like button so more people can discover the strange and fascinating history of what we eat and drink.